Shalom Israel first. Only roll praise glory honor to Yahweh by Hashem outside by Hashem Kakadash. I want to see Apostle as a great millstone. Peace citation to one third of Israel. For this lesson, I don't know what I'm gonna title it yet, but came across this video and it says IG model Aisha Sophie's brother showed their Muslim mom pictures of what she posts on social media. She broke down in tears of disappointment. Alright, and look at her face. She knows it's shameful. Hence why, women can't stand 10 toes on it. Alright? Like, for example, look at these P-Hub actresses, they, all of a sudden, they want to convert, these OnlyFans models, they get that quick, fast money, but ultimately there's, their dignity is on the line, their name is on the line, and people don't take them serious, But let me just...
This is terrible! Oh my god, that is... Oh my god, take the phone away!
Look, she embarrassing shit. Her mom, who's covered up modestly, like a woman's supposed to be covered up. She's embarrassed. Alright? Because, when a woman's a whore, she brings shame upon her family. Alright? And let me get that right quick. Let's type in shame. This is Sirach 26:10. It says, "If thy daughter be shameless, keep her in straitly, lest she abuse herself through overmuch liberty." All right, and I think I'm gonna title it "Too Much Liberty." All right, I'm gonna say, because here in Babylon, part of that wine is that liberty, that quote unquote freedom, do as thou wilt. All right, and that's what these nations, that's what the whole world is basically drinking of, because they have a Muslim mom, and I know in the whole Muslim religion, they don't play that shit, The women are covered up, all right? And you come to America, you got women wearing spandex tights, dressing like a Babylonian, all right, and acting as a Babylonian, all right? So therefore, that's that liberty, to do as thou wilt here in Babylon, all right? And now these people are starting to see that, it reaps, or it sows, or I should say reap. It reaps forth bad fruit. All right. But confusion and embarrassment. But it's lucky. I'm on break. I'm looking around. But this is Sirach 42:11. It says, "Keep a sure watch over a shameless daughter, that she make thee laughing stock to thine enemies, and a byword in the city, and a reproach among the people, and make thee ashamed before the multitude." All right. And no matter how much, Babylon tries to glorify being, a harlot, a whore, at the end of the day, everyone knows it's not right, because when two women are arguing, what's the first insult that they say? "Oh, you're a whore," and it just goes to show you the confusion, amongst this place. Isaiah 16:2, gross darkness of people. All right, but people are starting to wake up to, realize that this shit it's all corrupt. Let me go to shame face. This is Sirach 26:25. It says, "A shameless woman shall be counted as a dog, but she that is shamefaced will fear the Lord." All right, and what's a female dog? It's a bitch. All right, and that's what these women are, a bunch of bitches. They're shameless. They proud, shameless. But what's gonna stop that is when all hell breaks loose. Because right now, these women have liberties, too much liberty, to do as they will. And there's a reason why there was order, on a woman. You know, a woman, she was under her father's house, you know, for a time appointed, and then she was under her husband's house. You know, it wasn't no, you know, you just fucking house of pain, jump around and shit. No, you know, everything was in order. But here in Babylon, you know, women have too much liberty to explore, you know, quote unquote, find themselves. When, you know, that's it's all stupid. All right. Because when a woman gets to a certain age and she didn't use and abuse herself, now she, you know, sitting there crying on the internet like, oh, you know, men ain't shit, men don't want me because of your actions, you know, you being a hoe. All right. And it only hurts you in the long run. All right. And, you know, women be like, oh, what about men? What about men? Well, you know, men are allowed to have multiple women, you know, but that's a part of the Babylonian Jews that these nations didn't drink of, you know. Oh, you know, a man can't have multiple women. Oh, he's a hoe. Like, that's an insult. Like, what? That's actually you know, really well, you know, me speaking as a man, that's more of a compliment. Like, thank you. Like, you know. But Salakia, let me go to Revelation, Mother Harlots. There's a good point that one of the brothers, Brother Abadjaba, brought up. You know, this is Revelation 17:4. It says, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. All right, it's talking about here in Babylon, you know. Talking about Babylon. It says, upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. All right, and really, Babylon is like the headquarters for wickedness. All right, and that's why the Lord's going to destroy this place, you know, because scriptures say her sins have reached unto heaven, you know. Day in and day out is none but constant wickedness here. All right, and the reason why, you know, these people have too much liberty, you know, to do what they do is because, you know, them judgments haven't hit yet, you know, because in the ancient world, you know, let me get that right quick, or let me expound upon this point, and then the Lord will not get that other scripture. But the point I wanted to get from, you know, Babylon, mother of harlots, you know, that Abadjaba brought up, he said, you know, if Babylon is the mother of harlots, of course there's going to be harlots here, you know. And that's what these women are, you know, a bunch of harlots, you know. But this is why this place needs a reset, because that's why Yahushua said, you know, a generation of adulterers and adulteresses, you know. Like 9 times out of 10, you know, if you sleep with a woman, you're not her first and you're not her last, all right? That shit is off, all right? But that's why we need the Lord to come back and redeem us, all right? But let me get this right quick. This is let's get that right quick. What's happening in the war? All right, this is Leviticus 21:9. All right, it says, "And the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, she profaneth her father. She shall be burnt with fire." All right, and there's you know, it's not just Shalaki. It's not just the you know, a woman that brings shame to her name. You bring shame to the whole house, the whole family. All right, as we read in Sirach, I believe the 42nd chapter, you know, earlier in this video. All right, so there's a repercussion behind that. You know, there's a stigma. You know, you laughing stock. Imagine that shit, bro. that they don't feel good. You know, having a, you know, knowing, say you got a daughter, right, and this motherfucker she a thought, all right, and she's just bringing dishonor upon your name, you know, and you be around and people just talking shit about you, all right. That don't feel good, all right. Because scripture says a good name is better than precious ointment, you know? So, shit, there's standards around here. All right, but I also wanted one more. There you go. It says Leviticus 19:29. It says, do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. All right, and that's what here in Babylon is a bunch of full of whoredom and wickedness. All right, that's the repercussions. That's the repercussions, you know, for the or this is the what's the word for it? This is a product of, you know, when the laws, statutes, and commandments aren't implemented, you know, on the planet Earth. All right, and Esau, you gonna pay for that shit. All right, because ultimately, you know, you turn everything upside down, and you just let me just read it. This is Isaiah 24:4. It says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away, the haughty people of the earth do languish. Their earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. All right, and you know everything's, you know, mourning right now. All right, like nowadays, now men don't even want to talk to these women, you know, because of how, you know, just the way they act. They act like niggas, all right, and dudes now act like women, all right. So that's why this place gotta go, all right. You got passport. There's such thing. There's a such thing as called passport bros. You know, people that, you know, men that go to other countries to find women. Like, if they don't tell you how fucked up Babylon is, I don't know what does. All right. I saw this new thing or I saw this study on Instagram. It says, you know, women aren't going back to the 50s no more. You know, they're quote unquote happy living a single life and being childless. All right, and what's a woman's job? To bring forth children. You know, to conceive children, to bear children. All right, but here everything's been defiled, everything's been turned upside down. Esau then you know, shoved that drink down your system, and now, you know, as the other Tazabah says, you know, that the hangover is here. You know, the hangover is kicking in. You know, fucking fat ass headache. You know, and people are starting to see, you know, that this shit was poison. You know, it wasn't beneficial. All right. It says, therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry-hearted do sigh. All right. So ultimately, you know, when this place, or Babylon, needs to get taken out. All right. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. All right. Because in the kingdom, you ain't gonna have no OnlyFans. You know, you ain't gonna have these porn websites. You know, everything's gonna be in righteousness and in order. All right, and guess who you can blame? Guess who you can blame? You can blame the so-called white man for all this. All right, Esau, Edom, starting with, you know, the chief tribe, you know, the small hatters, Amalek. All right, because them niggas are behind all these agendas. These things didn't pop up out of the blue. You know, Esau, he didn't push all these things. Hence why, you know, those things are you know, so glorified. You know, oh, it's easy to make money. Just do this. You know, you basically selling out. I hate people have no morals nowadays. All right, but you know, the Lord gonna reward these people in due time. All right, so I don't want to make this too long. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and well said. Lastly, I want to give all praise, glory, honor to Yahweh Bashim outside. Bashim Kakadash. Next time, Shalom.